You can use any 24 peg loom. It can be a round loom, it can be any 24 peg loom. You can set it up for 24 pegs. You can use a round loom, you can use long loom, it doesn't matter. This is what this is written for, just a 24 peg loom. And it doesn't matter your gauge, any gauge will work. Okay, so I always like to start off with the head. Okay, and the head's this flat 24 pegs. So you're going to be casting on, you're going to do a drawstring cast on for 24 pegs. And you're going to do it flat. And what's going to work out the same with the cat and the dog and the rabbit, and I'll show how to do the squirrel, and they all generally work out the same. Okay, so what you're going to do is your first thing you're going to start out with, no matter if you're making the dog, cat, or rabbit, or even the squirrel, you're going to start off with a drawstring cast on, 24 pegs flat, and you're going to knit 9 rows. Alright, so let's start off with that. Now, because I'm doing a little different thing here, by doing 4 at once, I want to make sure it's going to be easier for me, so I'm going to be doing this as my first peg. Alright, so it keeps me even. Alright, so what I like to do is stick my finger in front of that first peg. This will be my first peg. Whatever your first peg's going to be, you're going to stick your finger on the working yarn and pull it back. Alright, then you're going to weave. So this is going to be your next peg. And then that's going to be an okay. Alright, now what you're going to do is, instead of going circularly like you might have done before in other projects, you're going to take it back the other direction. Okay, so you're going to slip your way back, try to push down all your loops, okay, and you're just going to toss over every other loop you just created with your weave. Alright, I apologize for the distraction. I have no time to film anymore, so bear with me. Here, okay. So we're about done with our drawstring cast on flat. Okay, now when you get around here, if you're working on a flat zone like this, make sure you nail that one, and you want to be able to go in and toss this over like this. Okay, so don't forget those zones. Alright, that's drawstring cast on flat, and you're going to slip your first stitch and knit your last stitch. Now that's not written in, you don't have to, it just makes where you knit your last stitch, slip your first stitch, just makes it easier to see a chain to sew up. Okay, you don't have to, you can just do it straight out. Alright, so I'm going to slip that first stitch and I'm going to knit my way around. Okay. Okay, and then we are to our last stitch in this row. We knit it, and then we'll slip it, or we skip it and just head on over. Alright, you do the same thing going around the other direction, and you're going to do this for a total of 9 rows, okay? So I just completed row 1, and this is going to be row 2. Just go ahead and pause the video and complete 9 rows knitting back and forth flat. Alright, so pause the video, complete that, and also keep in mind, if you want to do a little bigger of an animal but you want to keep the tightness going on, you want to E-wrap a row and then flat knit a row, and what that'll do is it'll still keep you a tight stitch while also allowing for a little larger of an animal than just a straight out knit. Okay, so that should help you in if you want to make a little larger of an animal but you want a tight knit so that you can stuff it firmer. I like to stuff my animals firmly, so that's something to keep in mind when you're doing this. You can wrap a row, knit a row, and you just need to keep up with what you're doing. If you need to write it out, what row you're on, and whether you're knitting or e-wrapping, but you can do that and that helps. Alright, so there's my last stitch. Toss it over. Slip the first stitch and go around. So that's rows, 2 rows. Get a total of 9 rows going, and then when we come back we'll be ready to do ear rows, and that's where the videos will break up. Okay? Yeah. Okay, we are going to do our row 10 for the dog ear, and what you want to do is you want to mark out your stitch markers, and you'll see knit 5, and then you'll see knit 6 for 10 rows. That's your knit 6. You're going to be working over 6 pegs, so you'll place 6 stitch markers, and then you have 2 pegs that won't have any stitch markers, and then another 6 because you do the same thing that you did with this ear here, and then you will knit 5. So what that's going to look like is you'll have 5 empty pegs here, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with stitch markers on them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2 empty, 6 with stitch markers, and the rest empty. Now the reason why we place those stitch markers, 1, you know where your ear starts, 2, you'll see this BOLB, bring original loop back. To make that easier, placing the stitch marker on there makes that a heck of a lot easier, okay? So, what kind of ears we're doing are the ones that fold down, so you know. Alright? So, here's how this goes. It says knit 5 to start. So, what we want to do is I've been slipping on the end, so it's a little easier when I go to sew my animal together. Okay, so we're going to slip that in, but it still counts. You can knit it if you choose, but because I find it easier to sew up. Alright, so that's going to count as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, now what it says now on in your book, it says knit 6, 10 rows, okay? And the parentheses means you're going to be going over these 6 rows, okay? And you're going to be short rowing. And the comma represents a row and starting a new row because it's a back and forth. It's not circular, okay? So you're going to knit 6 for 10 rows. And then you're going to knit 5, knit 4, knit 3, knit 2, knit 3, knit 4, knit 5, knit 6 for 10 rows, and then bring original root back. This is what this means. Now, it also gives you the note if you want to do a section to change colors, you'll want to do it right here. Okay, typically that's where the change of colors is that when you go, after you knit your 2, you change colors when you knit 3. Okay? Alright, here we go. Now, to make sense of this parentheses area, which is always fun, go ahead, and this counts as row 1. Alright, and this it makes it a lot easier. Alright, and try to show all those in there. That's row 1. Okay, and this is going to be row 2. Okay, now it says to knit 5 with a comma. Starting with the peg you finished with, you're going to knit 5. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then it says knit 4, starting with the peg you finished with. So you can knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then it says knit 3, starting with the peg you finished with. So you can knit 1, 2, 3. Then it says to knit 2, starting with the peg you finished with. 1, 2. Then starting with the peg you finished with, knit 3. So knit 1, 2, and 3. And again, starting with the peg you finished with, it says to knit 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then starting with the peg you finished with, you're supposed to knit 5. So here's 1, oops, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now it says to knit 6 for 10 rows. Okay, so you're going to start back off knitting 6 for 10 rows like we did in the start. Okay, so here's 1, 2, so here's row 1. Stitch markers can be a pain sometimes. Here's row 1. Here's row 2. Okay, then it says BOLB, which means bring original loops back. This is where the stitch markers are going to make this really easy on you, okay? Alright. So what you want to do is you want to find your stitch markers and start bringing them back. Make it really easy on you. So just add them back. Make sure you add them back in order. Alright. Makes it real easy. Okay. These got mixed up. Alright. And one more. And you just take those out and your ear is complete. Okay, so the next process is, it says to knit 2 and then do your ear, okay, in your book. And what that means when it says to knit 2 and then your ear again, you're going to repeat the exact same thing you just did in your parentheses section in the next 6 pegs. Okay, so you're going to knit 2 and then repeat your ear, and then it says knit 5, well then you just knit the rest of the way. So go ahead, pause the video and complete your ear row, and we'll come back and we'll do the rest of the head. Okay, this next row, row 11, is going to qualify for the cat, the dog, and the rabbit, but not the elephant. Okay, so what you're going to do is, because it's just varied in the different spots, what this means here on row 11, knit 5, knit 2 together 6 times, knit 2, knit 2 together 6 times, knit 5. Okay, you have your cat here, but basically what you're doing is getting all your pegs back down to 1 stitch. Okay, so it's going to vary differently between the animals, just a little bit between, say, your rabbit and other things. It's going to vary just slightly, but all you're doing is getting your pegs back down to one stitch. Okay, so that's gonna be the same for the rabbit and the cat and the dog. Now it's going to vary a little bit. Okay, for like the rabbit, it's going to be a knit 6, then knit 2 together, I think 5 times, and then knit 2. Okay, but all you're doing is getting your rows back down to, getting your pegs back down to one stitch is all you're doing. So you're just going to go in and you're going to knit your way around and knit 2 together if there's 2 stitches. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and complete this row, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what the next section is. Okay, so in the book it has row 12 through 16 to knit. Alright, and what that is 5 rows, because between the getting your pegs back to one stitch and then knitting for 5 rows is 6 rows, which is typically what happens after you do the ear section on the majority of the animals in this book, is 6 rows. If it changes, I usually put it in there. Make sure you notice that and count it out. You know, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, you'll see that's 5 plus 11 is 6. So typically it's 6 rows after the ear. Alright, and that is what it's going to be after the elephant. So you're going to do 6 rows, okay, but on these you're going to do 5 rows, okay. So what that means is you're going to go back and forth for 5 rows. So this is going to be row 1, and if you're not having to get all your pegs back to one stitch, then you're going to do a total of 6 rows, okay, and this is what typically comes after the ear. Alright, so if you're doing the elephant, you're going to just do 6 rows, and with the dog, rabbit, and cat, you're going to do a total of 5 rows because you had to work all your pegs back down to one stitch. Okay, so what you'll want to do is go ahead and pause the video and do your 5 or 6 rows back and forth depending on what the pattern says, and then we'll be ready to do what I call an internal decrease, and it's where you're just going to half the number of stitches you have, and it's going to go from 24 pegs to 12 pegs, and I'm going to show you how to do that. There's a couple of ways you can do it, but the way I prefer best I will show you, but that's the next hardest part of this pattern besides the ear section, is usually the internal decrease, because this is where you can accidentally drop a stitch. But I'll show you a way of doing that so that it's a little easier for you. Alright, and then we're going to have so many rows of knit after you do the internal decrease. Now the internal decrease is generally going to work for all of the rabbit and the cat, and the dog may vary a little bit, but I'll film that one separately, okay? So there's the internal decrease, which I'll show you how to do that, and then there's the actual length of the snout area, okay? And that's what makes that defined area, is the internal decrease. And you come up on this video, you're still on the right video, okay? Because what this is it's I'm going to show you 2 ways to do the internal decrease from 24 to 12 pegs, and I'm going to show you a couple of ways to do that, okay? So what you can do is you can take your end stitch and you can take it over, and then you can wrap it. Then you can take the next one over and you can knit, and you can take the next one over and knit, okay, and the next one over, and knit, and the next one over, and one more, next one over to there, and knit. Now you can do this all the way around, okay? And then when you're done, what you want to do is you want to pick up each of those stitches, alright? And because you did it like this, those stitches are kind of loose, so they should be really easy to move. And you're just going to place them right beside each other, okay? Now, you'll notice the stitches are loose. You will need to snug them up, as I call it, alright? What that means is you go in and you're going to pull that next stitch and pull the next stitch until it's snug, and pull the next stitch and pull the next stitch, and you just do this all the way around. Now that is one way of doing this, and you're just going to do it all the way around to the end here, okay? And you just gather it together, alright? That is one way of doing it. You just half the stitches. The other way of doing it, and it does risk you losing the stitch more, but if you're comfortable with it, you want to lift up 11 stitches on one side, starting from the end. So there's 1, 2. If you have another hook, this might make it a little easier too. And I find doing this on the larger gauges a little easier when you start doing the internal decrease. Okay. What you want to do is you want to set up 2 on each, 2 stitches on each peg over 6 pegs, like that. See? Now you can do it that method. And then what you don't have to tighten the stitches then, you can just knit it over, okay? Now when you do the first method, you have to do it all the way around. You can't do the halfway point and then do the other half. You have to do it all the way around, okay? I just showed you halfway around. But when you do the first method, you have to do it all the way around. When you do this method, you do half the first half and then you do the second half. And set it up, and then all you should have to do is knit them together, but you don't have to tighten the stitches up, okay? So if you do this method, you don't have to tighten the stitches up, but if you do the other method, you do, okay? But at this point, you will have just decreased to your face area, and you can see your ears popping through and that kind of thing, okay? So that is how you do a internal decrease. You have 2 options. You can go around and decrease and knit 2 together all the way around, and then pick up the stitches and put them beside each other and then tighten up your stitches. That's method 1. The other method is to go in and lift all 11 stitches and then place 2 over 6 stitches here, and then lift up on this side and place 2 stitches like we just did here. You're just going to do it 1/2 and 1/2 like I just did. You could lift up all 24 stitches and then place 2 stitches on each peg. As I said, there's always one way to skin a cat. So basically what you're trying to do is go from 24 to 12 pegs, and if you find a better method for you, go for it, okay? But this is the internal decrease, and I use this a lot in the majority of this book, and so this video will be put in here anytime I run into showing you how to do another pattern. If it shows up doing an internal decrease, this will show up. So just so you know, you're still on the same video if it shows up, okay? It's kind of like the last video for the 6 rows, 5 or 6 rows after you do the ears, and the very beginning where you do the back of the head, okay? These are all areas that run the same. I'm just trying to be able to speed up my video process so that I can get you this book and a full pattern video collection so that it makes sense when you're going in and you have this, and then you can go in and make any of these. So I'm just trying to make the video work sped up, so any area it's the same, it's going to show up in each video where it's the same as what I'm just doing now, okay? So keep that in mind. Okay, let's say you have a snout that has a defined area that has a sharp end to it like the dog does, as you can see in the photo. And I do that sometimes. I do it for the lion. And how you create that area is you do the number of rows that you need to after your internal decrease. You're going to do a single row of purl, and then you'll usually do a row of knit and then a drawstring bind off. So how that works is you'll go in and you'll purl all the way around one row, and then it'll tell you if you need to do a row of knit afterwards or how many rows of knit afterwards, okay? And with this pattern, it's just one row of knit after the purl, okay? But the purl row creates a defined area and changes it up to where it leans in rather than staying straight out. So this is the one row of purl after you do the however many rows after your internal decrease. This is the defined area. This only shows up in a few patterns, not a whole bunch. Okay. And then when you have these few patterns that show up like this, I'll usually tell you to do so many rows after the purl. You're only going to do one row of knit, and then you will do a drawstring bind off. Okay. Alright, so then go ahead and do one row of knit and then drawstring bind off, and then you are done with this style snout. Okay, so get that done, and then it's putting the head together, including the eyes. Alright, okay, I'm going to show you how to do a drawstring bind off for the snout, or the finishing of the head on pretty much majority of my animals. And what you want to do is you want to go in and actually I like to start on the opposite side of the loom for this. And what you want to do is you want to cut your strand, toss the bottom loop over on the opposite side, and pull through. Toss over and pull through. Toss over and pull through. And you're going to do this all the way around. Pull through. And we're almost done. And you do this with any of them that finishes off the snout this way. Just draw a string through. If it's different, I'll show it. But if it's like this, then this is the video you're going to get. Okay? Alright. Then you simply pull the head out, okay? And you tighten that up. Now, what you should have here is your head, okay? And your little snout area. And you can go ahead and pull the back of the head. Gather that up, okay? And there you should see your little cat face. But that is generally what you're going to do, is drawstring off. Then I'll show the other section of what typically happens after I drawstring off. Okay, so go ahead and drawstring your snout off, and then we'll be ready to start the next section on completing your heads. Okay, I'm going to show you how to start working on the body in general for some of my animals, like the cat and the dog and the rabbit, that kind of thing. But generally all my bodies start off with a drawstring cast on. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a half knot to take that down there. Okay, so again, when I'm doing the bodies in general, I like to start on the wedge pegs. And the reason being is a lot of times I don't end up using those pegs even with all the animals I do. And that's what you want to consider if you're doing something like this on the X-Lim, where you're wanting to do multiple ones at a time. But it doesn't really matter if you're using something else, okay? So that's going to go in front and back, front and back. But this time we're going to be working circularly rather than flat, okay? And again, all my bodies generally start with a drawstring cast on, and we are doing circularly. Okay, so you want to go in and you want to toss that over, and you want to go around this peg and toss that over, and toss that over. And so you just want to toss over all the ones you've just made. Now the next step is to either knit circularly for 20 rows or 6 rows, okay? And that's generally how I get started. And so what I'm going to do is I'll show you this video, and then I will state how many rows you'll need to do after you do your drawstring on, cast on, okay? In which we've almost done it. And so one more, and that completes our drawstring cast on, okay? Alright, now at this point you want to do normal rows of knit, just nothing special, just go around and knit. And you have the option when you're looking at the pattern books and everything, it'll usually tell you so many rows, and this is what those so many rows are, okay? So this is pretty self-explanatory. It's when you start getting into those bodies that actually are doing your legs along with the body that it gets a little bit more complicated, and I'll show how to do that because the elephant goes over that, okay? But at this point, for instance, if you're doing the cat or the dog or the rabbit, you'll want to do 20 rows, okay? So that is how you start doing your body. You're just going to go in and you're going to do a drawstring cast on, and then you're going to knit around like you normally would to make a hat or anything like that. You're going to knit around for a total of 20 rows for some, 6 rows for others. I believe the elephant's 4 rows, so you just need to figure out how many rows it says in the pattern and follow that, okay? and then it's going after that and doing the either the tail row or the legs, which is not as hard as it looks a lot of times in the written pattern. The legs aren't. And I'm going to show you a little technique that is not written in the pattern, but you can do it, or you can choose not to do it if you think it's too complicated. But I will show how to go about doing the legs and what it means and what that short row method means. But usually my animals have minimal sewing involved, because I find most people want to do stuffed animals. They don't want to have to do a whole lot of sewing. So that's mostly what you're going to get out of my patterns, is minimal sewing. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and get how many rows you need done according to the written pattern, and then we will go from there, and I will show you how to do the next steps. You're either going to be doing your tail row or you're going to be doing a leg row, and I'll show how to do leg row, because there's two types of bodies I generally do if I'm not doing any birds or fish. There's two types of bodies. There's the ones with the legs already done, and then there's ones where you attach the legs. Okay, and so I'm going to show you how to do both those, but this is how every single one of them starts. Okay, alright, so we're to the body and we're to row 21. Alright, and this will also explain how to do, if you wanted a white chest, how that goes about happening there. That's a half and half color change. But right now I'm just kind of giving you the basics of how to make a dog. And so we're at row 21, okay? And this is the purl 15, and then you're going to do a tail. Alright, so then you're going to purl 5. Alright, so we're going to go in, and what you want to do, because you're going to do to bring the original loops back, you're going to find out with your tail. So you know you're going to be purling 15, you know you're going to need to put a stitch marker on the next 4 stitches after row 15th peg. So on 16, 17, 18, and 19, you're going to put a stitch marker on that. Okay, so I'm going to get us 4 stitch markers, and I'm going to count it around. Alright, so we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Here's 16. Okay, so we're going to put it on the next 4 pegs, because they'll be bringing original loops back, and this is the easiest way to see it. Okay, and it's the fastest way too, without having to go and hunt for it. Okay, and we know we're working over the next 4 pegs. Alright, that's what it says to do. And now what we want to do is follow the pattern where it says that you need to, this is my starting peg, okay, where it says you actually need to purl 15. So I'm going to go in and we're going to purl 15. Okay, now that we know we've reached that, now we know we need to start our tail. Okay, so now we want to pull this out. And it says to knit 4 for 6 rows. And then it says knit 3, 2, 3, knit 4 for 6 rows, bring the original loop back. Alright, so what that means is you're going to knit. You're going to be working between these 4 pegs. Alright, so this is going to be row 1. Then it says in the pattern to knit 3. So you're going to start with the peg you finished with. So 1, 2, 3. Then it says knit 2. Starting with the peg you finished with. 1, 2. Then starting with the peg you finished with to knit 3. 1, 2, 3. Alright. Oops. That back on there. You've just created a point at the tip of the tail. Okay. And then knit that over. Alright. Now it says to knit 4 for 6 more rows. So here's 1, and 6 is your last one, so we're going to knit that way over. And then it says to bring your original loops back in the pattern. Alright, and what you want to do is you want to find your end ones, and you're going to just bring all those back. Just pull those stitch markers back really fast, as you can see. Makes it really easy to do that, so it's no longer a really challenging technique anymore. Okay, so there's bringing your original loops back. Alright, and you have just completed the tail of your dog. Now we're going to finish the row up. And it said in the pattern to purl 5, and basically that just means complete the row. Okay, and then at this point it is finishing up the bottom of the dog. Alright, so we've purled that last one, and then we're going to go back to our pattern and see what it says. Okay. Alright, now what it says at this point is you're going to go around row 22, is you're going to knit 15, knit the 2 together on that tail area, and then knit 5, and then you're going to just knit around for 4 rows. Okay, and then you'll do your drawstring bind off. Okay, so you're going to get all your stitches back to 1 is what that means. Okay, so you're just going to go in and knit your way around, knit these 2 stitches over here, and then you're going to do 4 more rounds and be ready to drawstring bind off. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and get yourself ready to drawstring bind off your body. Okay. Okay, I'm going to show you how to finish the drawstring off so that it's nice and smooth like this. You can do a standard drawstring, but you'd probably have to do the star close like we did for the head. And so I'm going to kind of show you how to do this. You go ahead and cut you a nice long tail. And what I like to do is skip my first peg, toss the bottom loop over, and then pull the tail through. And I take off every other stitch. Alright, so what you want to do is you want to take off every other stitch first. Alright, then you'll skip when you get your way around to the other side. Okay, okay, you're back around to the beginning, and what you're going to do, because you want to see where the extra long section is, you're going to skip that, and that's going to be your last one. You go to the next one, then you're going to finish taking off all the stitches at this point. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to go in and figure out which section you need to pull first. Okay, let's go ahead and finish taking off all the rest. Okay, and then we're going to take off the last one. Alright. pull that to the side now. I like to stretch it out. So what you want to do is, you see there's a finish here. See if I can get it to focus. Okay, you'll see there's the finish here, and then you want to go to this strand here on top. You want to pull it first. Okay. But you'll see, should pull the inside first. Then what you want to do is grab that and then pull it the rest of the way. Okay. And what that does is it gives you a nice, smooth, flat bottom. And then you just send it through and tie it off. So you send it through and just tie it off. Okay. And that's how you do the drawstring. Now, if you're doing the body anyway, now I know we've done a drawstring for the top, and the object of it is to just kind of get your seams where they're lined up, because most of your cast-ons are kind of loose when loom knitting, and what this does is you can drawstring it to the point where you can sew on the head easier. So you have this hole here, you can drawstring it to the point where you can sew on the head a little easier. Okay, so that is how you finish that, and the purpose of the drawstring is not to completely drawstring it, but to get it down to where you can match the bottom and that and sew it together. Okay, so that's how you do a drawstring off. Okay, the second option of a limb is what I usually like to call front legs, or legs in general, that has a foot to it. Alright, and how that's going to work is, it says to drawstring cast on for 16 pegs. Alright, again, because it's flat, you don't have to worry about using the wedges. Okay. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Alright. Weaving it in and out. And then you're going to take it back around and toss every other loop over. Alright, now we have our 16. Go ahead and make sure you have 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We have 16. Okay, now at this point it says to knit rows 1 through 4. Okay, so you just want to knit for 4 rows. And you will have to sew these up. So my suggestion to you is knit the last stitch, slip the first stitch, so that you have a nice clean chain to follow when sewing it up. Alright, so go ahead and pause the video and complete your 4 rows, and I'll show you how to do the next section. Okay. So when you reach the end, now you don't have to do this, but if you want a nice clean chain to work from to sewing it up, then I would suggest this. Alright, so knit that last stitch, and then you're going to slip it and knit your way over. Okay, now I'll do this for 4 rows, and then we'll be ready to start row 5. Okay, you'll see here that you'll have decreases going on the end pegs. So decrease, and it has the right direction. So you're going to decrease in 1. You're going to knit the 2 together. Okay. And what you can do, actually, because you see a decrease on the other side, and then knit the 2 together, you can pick that up, go ahead and decrease it over, so that you don't have to worry about it and accidentally forget it. Okay. So there's your decrease, and then Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then you want to knit 2 together. Okay. Whoops. That happens. Gently put the stitches back onto the peg. And then if you need to, knit one over, then the other. Okay. Then it says to do it again to get yourself down to 12 pegs. So you're going to move that stitch over on this side, and I like to go ahead and go to my end peg and go ahead and decrease it so I don't have to worry about it again. Okay. Then I'm going to make sure that I go ahead and knit those 2 together. 1, 2. And I'm going to knit my way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and knit the 2 together on here on the end. Then at this point it says to knit for rows 10 through 17. Okay, so basically you're going to knit for a total of, I believe that's 7 rows. Okay, so you're just going to knit back and forth, and that's where I start slipping the first stitch and knitting my way over, and you're going to do that rows 10 through 17, and that is the front leg. Okay, so you want to go ahead and pause the video and get those number of rows done. Hold on, wrong section. Thought it was longer. Excuse me. You do decrease twice. Here we are, right here. And then you're going to knit rows 7 through 18, which is usually about 10 rows. Okay, so you're going to knit for 10 rows, pardon, and you're going to knit back and forth for 10 rows, and then when we come back I'll show you how to bind off and sew up, and you're going to end up making 2 of those. And this is the front leg. This is this leg here, which is the same for the dog front leg and the bear's bottom legs. And this is also used for the fox pattern. This leg is used for the fox pattern here as well. And real quick. And it's also used for this dog pattern. And it's used for this rabbit pattern, and it's used for the scarecrow's legs. So as you can see, that's one of them that gets used. Alright, so that is the front leg, usually with a foot on it. Alright, so go ahead and pause the video, get your 10 rows done, and I'll show you how to do a bind off. Okay, it's time to show you how to complete a front leg or a leg. Okay, and so we finished up, we've done our decreasing, that kind of thing, we finished up, and we've done our rows, and now we're ready to bind off. So what you want to do is knit that second stitch, bring that second stitch over to the first peg, okay, and then toss the bottom loop over. Now this is pretty self-explanatory on a bind off, okay, and how you create a leg. Now, on some patterns, this leg may be longer, it may be shorter, it depends. Pay attention to how many rows you're looking at in the pattern, okay? Because it can vary. Alright. I use this as a leg as well, like for the bear and the scarecrow, I use it as a leg. I can use it as a leg for a doll because it has the foot area. So, you want to make a doll with a nice foot area, you can use this leg, this limb option. And then wrap again and pull through. Okay, you've now completed knitting this style leg. Okay, so you're going to pull that out. Okay, and as I said, for the leg, when it comes to the drawstring, you're not actually drawstringing it all together. You're getting it to where all the stitches are nice and neatly lined up rather than stretched, okay? Alright, so like that. Okay, where they're nice and neatly lined up. Fold that in half, and then it's time to start sewing up the leg, okay? Now, because I like to conserve all the stuff that I have in here, I'm going to use this to sew up my leg. Alright. I like using the extensions I have. I think it makes it more solid. Alright. So whatever length you have longest. Alright. Now, I send that through and then I follow the chains down. Sewing up the front, so you want to sew up the front. Okay. Then I reach here, and then what I like to do is do 2 half knots. Then I like to just shove that up in there so that I can keep it. Always use your tails as stuffing. Makes it where you have to use less polyfill, okay? Just going to send that through. And then what you want to try to do is send this between the 2 notches all the way down the bottom. And what that'll do is keep it fairly even on your drawstring. So you'll see a notch and a notch. There's a notch between each of between the needles. See a notch and a notch? You're going to send it through there. Okay. It also helps to keep your stitches even again. And that's always a good goal to have, is to keep even stitch work. Okay. One more. Okay. There. And you've sewn up that leg. You're going to tie it off. Then you're going to send it through the leg. Trying not to send that needle through anything else. Alright. Alright, and then you just pull it on through. Okay. There you go. Now, use that as stuffing. Okay. And if you start having a hard time with this, using it as stuffing, you can use some blunt scissors at the tip to go in and start shoving it in there. Okay. So at this point, then you'll be ready to stuff, but that is how you do a leg. Okay. Okay, so I want to show you how to go about doing a back leg, which is usually the look of an animal sitting. Okay, and there are several that have the back leg: the rabbit, the cat, the dog, the squirrel. So there's several that have this back leg style. Alright, now if you don't want to do the back leg, you can always do the body type 2, and that works just as well. Alright, so the body type 2 is like doing like the elephant without the tail, and that way you don't have to do all these extra appendages if you don't want to, so there's always 2 options if you'd like. Alright, so now to get us started, it says to draw string cast on 24 circular. So we will need the wedge for this one. Alright, so let's notch that down. Okay, so you want to hold that back. You want to do just like you did on the back of the head, except in the body, but this is going to be circular. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then all the way around, weaving back and forth. And remember, this is circular. Okay, once you get around here, then you're going to start tossing every other loop over. Again, these patterns are a guideline. If you don't want to do these style limbs, you don't have to. You can do the type 2 body style, and it'll look just as cute. Mostly what you need the guidance on is the heads. That's where a lot of your personality's at, okay? Okay. We have now worked our way around, and then at this point it says to go in and knit 6 rows. Okay, so what you want to do is go in and then just knit all the way around in circular for 6 rows. So go ahead and pause the video, and then we'll be ready to bind off 16 and then start actually working to where you're rounding it off. Okay, so basically you're working with foot area right now while working with all the stitches you've got, and then when you decrease, you're decreasing actually off the foot area, because you are going to need to be sewing this stuff up. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video, get your 6 rows done, and then we will go from there. Okay, and we're working this back leg. Alright, and you did 6 rows, so 1 through 6, you've done 6 rows, and then it says to bind off 8. You want 8 empty pegs, really. So I like to knit that first peg, knit the second peg, and take that second peg over to the first peg, toss the bottom loop over, and move it over one. Knit the second peg, take the second stitch back to the first peg and toss the bottom loop over. You're going to do this over and over until you have a total of 8 empty pegs. Alright. And this should be my last one. We'll count it out and make sure. One, two, three, four, five, 6, 7, 8. See? 8. So you want 8. And then you're going to knit your way around, which says knit 16. But what you're doing is you're knitting your way around on that one. Okay? And what that means is you should have a total of 16 pegs left. And usually when you do the bind off, you have a shortage. Okay, so at this point you're going to start knitting flat rather than circular, which is why it says start working flat. Okay, and then you're going to go down to the next row. Now, at this point it says decrease, knit 2 together, knit 12, and decrease. So if you got decreasing on the ends, then you can go ahead and just kind of move them over. So there's a decrease. Take that stitch, move it over, and then you can come over here so that you don't forget and move that stitch over, and then you'll be ready to just knit your way around. Alright, so you're going to knit those 2 together and then knit your way around. And then knit those 2 stitches together. Then it says to do it again on both ends. So decrease, knit 2 together, knit 10, decrease, knit 2 together. So then you're going to take those end stitches and move them in 1. Make it easy on yourself so you don't have to worry about forgetting. Okay. Then you're going to knit your way around. And when you get to the last peg, knit the 2 stitches together, like it says. Be decreased. Okay. Now at this point, it says rows 10 through 17 to knit, which means you're going to do 8 rows. Okay. So basically, you're just going to knit back and forth for 8 rows. And if you want it easy to see when you go to actually sew it up, knit the last stitch, slip the first stitch. Okay? So here's row 1. Alright, so I'm going to tell you to go ahead and pause the video and complete 8 rows. Alright. And then when we come back, we'll be ready to start our next section, which is row 18 and 19. Okay? Okay, over here it says on row 18 that you're going to decrease on ends and knit, and that you're going to do that twice. Okay, so again, I like to go ahead and just move my stitches so that I don't have to worry about it. Again, if you lose the stitches, you just gently put them back on the peg. Knit the 2 together. It says to decrease again. And then you're going to go in and knit the two together on that end, and then knit your way over. The two together. Okay, at this point it actually says to bind off. Alright. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip that first stitch, knit the second, take that second stitch back to the first peg, toss the bottom loop over. So this is nothing special, just a bind off. Okay, at this point, got your long strand, pull it through, pull it out. Okay, then you want to start stretching everything out. Alright, and it's the same thing like it has been being. You just want to pull this where all the seams are aligned with each other. Okay, just like, okay, and you can see that you have created an L, so to speak. See, an L. And basically at this point what you want to do is go ahead and sew this up. Alright, and that's the reason why I cut this kind of long, because I'm going to use it as my way of sewing it up. Okay. And the thing about when you sew up this back leg is it's going to be completely closed off. You're not going to be sewing it on later, and so you've got to remember that you need to stuff before you finish closing it off. Okay, now because we finished on an end and we kind of need to start back here, what I like to do is just kind of send the needle gently back to my starting point. Okay, now at this point we want to try to line everything up so that it's even, and then we're going to take our outer chains and start sewing up the leg. Okay. You want to sew all the way down. And pull that and pull it out. Okay. We're almost done with this now. I'm fixing to start work the area that you need to start keeping in mind. So I'm going to send that through. Okay. Then I'm going to send this through the center point. Okay. And push down through. Okay. Then I'm going to straighten that up. Now you're going to be sewing these in this end together, and when you get halfway back, stuff. Alright, this way you get it all in there. Okay, lots of fun with that. Okay, and when you get to the drawstring, if you would like, you can go ahead and you can tie that off. Okay, and then you can stuff it into the foot front. And you most likely want to do this because this is a really tight area to fit in stuffing. Okay, so you're going to want to definitely stuff this tail in, okay, to the front of this leg. And we'll make it easier to next time. Okay, so we're almost at our halfway point and sewing it up. And then we're going to need to stuff. Alright, and one more. Okay. Actually, I'm going to hold back on that. Okay, now. That's about my halfway point. At this point, you want to stuff your leg. You'd be surprised at how much polyfill you need for stuff like this. Now, let's say you're just requested to make one animal for a person. If you have an old pillow you aren't using, use it, okay? Don't go out and buy yourself a whole big bag of stuffing, not necessary. Alright. Okay, so stuff it the best you can. And then once you have that, then what you want to do is finish sewing it up, okay? And I haven't stuffed it like massive or anything. So just finish sewing it up. Now if you run into an open spot like this, what you can do is you can send your needle up through there and you can just close that off. Alright. Make sure that when you do that, that you loosen it back up. Okay, and you can just close that off so that you don't have that opening. Okay. Alright, now, at this point, you have just finished your leg, okay? And that is how you make a back leg, okay? Okay, to close off the back of the head of these animals, what you want to do is you want to draw a string and then try to push that drawstring in there here. Okay. Now you'll notice that there's still a slight opening. We're going to fix that, okay? So, and I'm going to show you how to go in and fix that. Go ahead and get you a needle. Alright, now there's a star method that I like to use to truly close off the back of the head. Okay, and you're going to do this with all of them. So you're going to send the needle through the opposite side that you finished on. Alright. Then what you're going to do is you're going to hit the top. You're going to do it like a star. You're going to go in through the top here, send the needle through. Then you're going to come back down to the corner, but not quite, just a little above it. Then you're going to come back over here, just like drawing a star, okay? Then you're going to go straight across and pick up a stitch there. Then you're going to go back down again on the other side, slightly above where you started. Then you're just going to pull all that together, okay? And as you can see, it closes off the back of the head. There. Alright, once you have that tightened up, a lot of times you'll knit your way back a few, okay, just to kind of close off the bottom back of the head a little bit. Alright, so just send it through the chains as far out in the outer bit as you can. Alright, I'm only going to do that about 3 times because I need a big enough opening to be able to stuff the head. Alright, so once I got that, then I will knot it off. And I usually don't cut it because I usually just stuff it in to the head. Alright, just add stuffing. Alright, so that is how you go and do the star pattern to close off the back of the head. Okay, now all of them eventually you'll need to sew up a snout or a trunk. You take the drawstring, and usually I leave a lot extra to be able to do other things with, because I usually cinch the eye area or use it to sew up the ears, that kind of thing. Sometimes ears don't need to be sewn up. Okay, so you drawstring it together as tight as possible. Then you want to sew up the snout. And if you slipped and knitted the end stitches, you should have a chain, but you want to try to get as close to the edge as possible when sewing up your snout area, and that includes it on any of these animals in this book, okay? You want to do that with. Alright, and then when you get over to your decrease, you're going to go 1 past the decrease, and that sews up your snout. Okay, so that closes up your snout. Now you're going to knot that off. Okay, and then certain ones you don't have to sew up the ears. As you can see, you don't have to sew up the ears for the cats. So sometimes the ears you don't need to sew up. You don't really need to sew up the ears for the dog. Right? So that is how you do the closure of the snout and the back of the head. Okay, to cinch an eye area, I usually take either the snout or the back of the head, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it through the back center a lot of times. Alright, and if you like the look and you don't feel like you need to cinch it, like this looks more like a chihuahua, you don't have to. You send it back through, and then what I like to do is go at the base of the snout. Send it up as close to the eyeball as possible. Base of the snout, send the needle through, send it back through to the back center. So you send it up and through into the back center again. Pull through. And what you want to do at this point is kind of pull tight. And you can see where the eye is more cinched in, right? Compared to the other side. Now you don't have to do this, it's only if you want to. Alright, so next thing you want to do is send it back through. Go through the base of the snout again, where the eye is, and then get it as close up to the eye as possible, and then go through. And then I usually like to open it at the bottom, and there is your eyes cinched in. Okay, and now you have a really defined area for your dog. Now I like to go in and either tack down my ears, depending on how. I may leave one up, but it's up to you. If you want to tack them down to the side of the face, you can, to give them more of a dog look, you can. If you were wanting to do that, then all you need to do is, I try not to cut too often. So what I like to do is go in wherever I want to attach it, and then take that tip of the ear, send it through, and then do the same thing on the other side. So you can see I did that. And then I send it through to the other side, and I don't pull it too much, I just want to lightly tack it down. Okay. And then pull through, get that nice fold in, and send back through. Okay, so that is your little dog with its ears tacked down if you want it. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. Okay. And there's your little dog. And then all I do is just send it through a loop on the bottom and knot it off lightly. And then I always use my tail as stuffing, and you can just stuff it in there. Okay, so that's kind of how you do the eye cinching to define the face. It varies from face to face. We did more from a front angle, but you can do more from a side angle. And do keep in mind that making any stuffed animal, there is just lots of shaping involved before you actually get what you're looking for. Okay, so you shove it, all the stuffing in there, and then you just sit there and you shape it until it's where you want it. And then it's up to you if you want to embroider in a mouth or anything like that. I usually like try to keep it as simple as possible, but that's how you go about cinching eyes. It's all through the back of the head and that kind of thing, going front and as close as possible, and that really gives you a nice defined area. If you're going onto the sides, then you're going to want to try to connect the sides where they cinch in more to the center, and I'll actually show how to do that. Okay. Okay, I'm going to show you how to assemble the cat and the dog body together. Alright, so actually what you want to do is, after everything's stuffed like it is, alright, what you want to do is you want to sew your limbs on first. Alright, and you want to find out what your center back is. Okay, which looks like it's that. Alright, and what you want to do is you want to sew the front legs where you fold them in half. You want to sew them right at the very top of the body like that. Okay, so you want to sew them on like that, and then you want, these are the tops of your legs. Okay, and as you can see, they all get kind of sewn together like that, and then you add the head on top. Alright, so what you want to do is you want to sew your legs on first, your front legs, and then sew your back legs on last. And then the last thing that gets sewn on is your head. Okay, and it's the same way if you're doing the cat. Alright, so this is the same process. So what I like to do is find out where my back center is. There's my back center, so here's my front center, and I'm going to sew straight across. Alright, so I'm going to find out where my center is, which is right there, and then work my way. Okay, the first thing I want to do is send it through the top of the body, then send it through the very edge of my leg. Alright, and then send it through my slip stitch. Okay, then you're gonna send it through part of leg, and then the body. Okay, and then the leg, front and back, and then connect to the body. Okay, you're going to do that all the way across. You're connecting it to the body. Making sure you're staying even with it. And one more edge. Okay, then you know you've sewed on that first one. Now you want to sew on the next one, so it should be right beside it. Okay, the needle came out. Okay, so at this point you want to fold your leg in half. Okay, and then you want to start sewing the other half on now. Alright, so start on the end. Okay, and then sew it on. Front and back, and then the body. Front and back, and then the body. And front and back, and the body. And last time. Okay. Now your front legs are sewn on, and they should be approximately lining up. Okay, now if you don't like cutting and starting new ones again, you can take and just send this down and start sewing on the back leg. I can tell you the tricks on sewing back legs is you want to kind of line the bottom up with that purled line here. So, and it's more of almost a weaving action. So you're going to weave that in. So I typically start weaving in to sew up. So I weave into the leg, and then I weave into the body. Okay, and then I weave into the leg, and then I weave into the body, and I weave into the leg. Now at this point you can do a little sewing up of the purled row with the leg. Okay, now you can leave it where the leg's loose, or you can try notching it in more. Okay, and you want to do that and just sew that down too. Alright, now let's say you want your legs to stay down, then you can go in and catch the tip of those feet. You don't have to do this. Catch the tip of those feet and bring it down. And you can do the same thing. And send it through a couple of purled rows, and then send it up through there. And these will kind of keep it down. Okay. Then you want to find your other leg, which is right here. And remember, this is your top and this is your bottom. Okay, and keep that out of the way. That's going to sew up your head. Okay, so you have that here. And then what you want to do is take it through the purl thing a couple of times. Then send it through a purl and send it through the bottom. Okay. Alright. And you're going to send it through the purl, send it through the bottom. Working your way around. Okay, and then we're about ready to sew up the back of that leg. And we're going to do one more. Okay. Now at this point, this is where you're going to start the weaving process. You're going to weave it through the body. And you're going to weave it through the leg. Weave through the body. And weave through the leg. Weave through the body. And weave through the leg. And weave through the body. And weave through the very top of the leg. And you should practically be able to tie off your original slip knot here. Alright. Now, here's where I take that off and shove it in there. And then this is where you want to sew on the head. Now remember, this works exactly the same as the cat when you assemble it. And you're just going to sew the head on. Okay? So you keep the body strand that you have and you thread it, and then you're going to sew the head on. Remember that the nose is center between and the back is center for the tail. Okay? You're going to be starting on a slight angle. Make sure you get the very edges of the head as best you can, and then just work your way around. Okay? Okay, and then when you get to the center, okay, then you're going to go through the center of the snout, and then keep working your way around. Basically, you want to make sure your ears line up with the sides of the legs, the back legs. Okay. I'm going to make sure the back lines up as well. Okay, and you can see how that's coming along. Okay, and if you didn't draw stringing enough, then you're just going to go in and send it through a couple, and then send it through the back center. This is usually where you see if you draw strung it enough or not. If you didn't, you can always fix it. Okay, and just send it through a couple of those notches, and then send it through the head. Okay, but you make sure your back center. Okay, and then you're just going to keep going around, and we're almost done. We've almost got our head sewn on. Okay, we do one more, and the head is basically sewn on, and then at this point you want to knot off, and then what I like to do is tuck that tail in to the middle. So thread my needle and then send it through the body. Okay, then you can just cut off the extra. Make sure not to cut your garment, your fabric. Alright, so there. You put together the dog and the cat the very same way. Okay. Here's your little tail. And that is how you assemble the body for the dog and the cat.